excited to present today. We originally titled our presentation Cost Per Acquisition, Are We Racing to the Bottom? And Leanna and I have a lot of really nerdy, exciting things we'd like to talk to about that, but we have 25 minutes. So we already had titled it. Really what we're going to do is talk a little bit about how cost per acquisition isn't the only thing we need to be thinking about while we present a case study about an awesome personality quiz that we worked on together in the last year. So, wait, the green button. I'm Zach Zimmel. I am one of the founders of and the strategy director at a team called Principles. We know a lot of you. We've worked, luckily, with a bunch of people in the room. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces. We're a team of 9. We're based out of CSI Spadina. And yeah, we kind of live in the intersection of what a digital ad agency might do and what a management consultancy might do. So that's us. You can look me up on LinkedIn or check us out at withprinciples.com.
And I'm Leanna Pisani. I'm the social media manager at World Animal Protection Canada. Really, meta ads are kind of my jam. I also love scrolling TikTok until the wee hours of the morning. And I actually became a social media professional because back in 2013, somebody told me it wasn't a real career. And I said, bet.
Awesome. So, yeah, I'll start. I'm hearing my voice a little shaky. This is my first time speaking at a conference in a few years, so I'm sure I'll get a little smoother as we go. But we'll start by saying I've had the kind of pleasure of working with World Animal Protection in one capacity or another since probably 2014. Principles started in 2019, and in 2020, the team called us and said, we need some help with our social fundraising. And so we started by doing quite a bit of data analysis and realized that the program as it existed at the time was mostly focused on social media ads with donation buttons on it. And we kind of did some crunching to realize that the return on ad spend was probably negative in the short term, and that the ROI long term was definitely not as efficient as it could be. And so we spent a lot of time working with Leanna and the team to kind of transition the social part of their digital fundraising program to be more focused on top and middle of funnel asks. And so yeah, that's what we've done. I think one of the other things that is really important for me is this slide specifically. When we were doing discovery, we realized that there were a lot of organizational needs that needed to be met. And the goal wasn't just let's launch a campaign with the lowest cost per acquisition possible. The team over at World Animal Protection has a super sophisticated and smart program. I know a lot of you have seen it or worked with them. And it has a ton of petitions, letters to target, et cetera, that are performing and continue to perform really, really well with awesome and low cost per acquisitions. But we knew that there were other things that needed to be addressed along the way. One of them was that our audience, while always trying to grow our audience, it is finite sometimes in the short term. And there was a little bit of exhaustion with kind of similar top of funnel and middle of funnel asks out there. So we knew that we needed to find other ways to engage folks. One of the other downsides of a letter to target or a petition campaign is, the plus side is it's actually creating change in the real world with a real petition connected to real issues, often connected to a government relations strategy. And the downside is that means when you need leads, you just need to hope that your government relations strategy and advocacy strategy has something to be talking about, et cetera. And so we knew that there was an opportunity, or a need rather, to kind of diversify a little bit and build things that could be evergreen, maybe not another petition, and find ways to convert leads to donors. Ultimately, the goal is to diversify the fundraising and the lead generation portfolio. So eventually that will probably also mean talking about other channels, but in the short term, really meant kind of looking at what our lead magnets were and making sure there was a combination of low and high barrier asks.
As Zach mentioned, we do have a lot of really successful low barrier lead generation assets, including petitions, email to target campaigns, other advocacy campaigns. And those have successfully generated leads for us at about $1 to $2 per lead acquisition, with good donor conversion rates as well via telemarketing as well as email. we also know that we can't keep going out to our audience with asks without providing them something of value in return, or we're just going to end up right back in the same cycle of audience exhaustion with decreasing engagement. So before we jump into the case study you're all here for, let me give you a little bit more context. So back in 2022, we worked with principals to develop a behavior change campaign designed to help Canadians eat less meat, which we called Plan Meatless Better. The landing page for this campaign featured an interactive recipe generator that you can see here. That was built by manipulating the Engaging Network's survey module. The generator started with a BuzzFeed-esque quiz that determined users' food preferences and then outputted a unique set of vegetarian recipes based on people's responses to that survey. And the strategy for this campaign was focused on finding omnivores who were concerned about climate change. And so in addition to the recipes, each output also celebrated the user's reduction in meat-based carbon, their reduction in their footprint from meat-based carbon, and then put them on a custom email series that would coach them to further reduce that. And so because the goal is behavior change, it was not built for lead generation objectives. We did generate some leads as a secondary objective, but in 2023, we took that idea and we really wanted to develop a new lead generation campaign that was fun and had that evergreen potential. And we realized we had this great foundation. And so we took that and turned the recipe generator into a personality quiz.
Awesome. Anybody that's ever worked with me has heard me say this and has probably rolled their eyes, but I just wanted to say it today because I like to say it a lot, and also because we did have that conversation around, okay, we know what we need to do. We know we need this lead magnet. How do we not start from scratch? What processes exist? What platforms exist? What products exist that could be leveraged? And that Plan Meatless Better campaign was super successful. It was built on Engaging Networks, and we worked with Mon, who I don't know if she's here right now, but I know she's here today and tomorrow. So anyways, we made sure that we were not starting from scratch, and we were asking ourselves, what can we build upon that already exists? And so let's get into the case study. This is kind of exciting. So we started, and this campaign really did live on Meta for the most part from a paid capacity. We've been testing with all of our clients a bunch of different channels. And as far as social goes, I think it's important that we continue to think about what other channels we need to be on. We need to start to diversify. We don't want to be so reliant on a single algorithm or, at risk every time there's an iOS update. But we are also, we are also finding that we're seeing ridiculously low cost per acquisition when we're on Meta. So we did build this campaign knowing we'd be on multiple channels, but also knowing that the paid efforts would focus on a Meta campaign. And so the personality quiz was really trying to help match people to which animals their attributes most match. And we know from other work with the organization and from a ton of awesome research that the team over at World Animal Protection is always doing, we knew that people are connected for different reasons. Some people care about wildlife more. Some people care about farm animals more. We wanted to make sure that we had a variety of assets that could be served in rotation and let the algorithm kind of do its thing. If we move on to the next slide, please. This was also, you're probably either doing this already or seeing a lot more of this, but the TikTokification of every social media channel is more than upon us. And some people like to see ads and convert, and some people don't like looking at things that feel like ads. And so this is a campaign where we really started with featuring human faces talking to camera, explaining with a personal connection why you should, basically what the call to action is. And this is something that we've, expanded to try and are continuing to work on new and exciting ways to do that, but was really kind of a good validating reminder when we got the results back that these were by far our highest performing assets. And so we built the quiz. So let's talk about the quiz experience a little bit. So again, using that Plan Meatless Better lead magnet or campaign landing page, we planned to create a series of questions from the brand research that World Animal Protection had, we knew that we could build basically 4 different personas for this work. And so we created 4 different personality types that people could become when they fill out these questions. And so because there were 4 personality types, we made sure every question had 4 responses. They were randomized, so it's not just A, B, C, D every time, but at 1 response from every question matched to basically an answer that a person of that personality type would espouse, I suppose. So if we move on to the next slide, please, Leanna. These were essentially the 4 personality types that individuals could be. And our friend, I know, where's Jeff? Jeff at World Animal Protection, also fellow nerd, created, I say with love, did a bunch of custom coding on the back end to basically count the number of responses that each individual had that corresponded with each personality type. And whichever response people answered in the highest volume, it would tell them, hey, this is now your personality type. So that's super cool. Wait, I can learn to do that too. So that's a little bit of the what, but then there's also some important how behind the scenes. And so this form, as I mentioned, was custom coded to write the user's personality type. It would then take that personality type and map it to their supporter profile within Engaging Network, so that we could, as a custom field, so that we could create conditionalized content and their journey for them accordingly. And so the post-campaign or the post-action page is the first place that an individual kind of got a custom experience where we were able to show the content that corresponds with their personality type. Sorry, that's kind of what it looks like on the back end. And then put them into a series where they would receive an autoresponder as well that was matched specifically to the personality type that was within their supporter record.
Okay, so we'll chat a little bit more about that customized user journey. So we used Marketing Automation Builder, and we created a series of branching paths that you can see here that use the decisions conditions, thank you,
yep.
To segment users in the automation based on the data in the quiz supporter field. We also tried to boost actions on emails with specific calls to action, such as get to know you surveys. These were configured to send only to people who hadn't completed the action after the first request. And lastly, we also created a brand poll, which I was really excited about. This was within the Welcome series, and users would respond with what they cared about most. We, again, leveraged data from our brand market research for this. And this then created another branching path for a final donation appeal that was customized to each of the brand poll responses.
Awesome. Ultimately, it was a success. We celebrated at the end and are still very happy with the results. Within the campaign moment paid effort, we generated over 6,000 leads with an aggregate cost per acquisition of just over $2, which is in a very healthy range for the organization, higher than some, but certainly lower than others. And so something that we were really excited about, because not only were we focused on that cost per acquisition, we were able to kind of check quite a few boxes that were required to make sure that there's a healthy, diversified lead generation program in market.
There's so many things we could talk about further, so please do stop us and we'll get nerdy. But we did challenge ourselves for this presentation to determine our 5 most important things that we want to keep in mind for future campaigns, and they are...
Yeah, I've talked about this a bunch. Diversify your lead magnets in your lead generation portfolio. I think like now is a super important time that we're reaching our audiences on social media and bringing them from those kind of managed external channels to ones that we own, like our email file. The future of the internet and the future of communications and just the future is super uncertain. It probably makes sense that we're not relying on multinational corporation algorithms that we have no control over for how we communicate with our supporters. And so we should diversify for sure to different channels. And in the short term, we should also be working on the channels that work and making sure that we have not just petitions and letters to target for some of the reasons that I mentioned, or just cookbooks, but all of them are super important.
That said, it's also important to leverage social media trends. Not all trends are worth jumping onto, of course, but testing trends when it comes to content type, I think, has led to our best performing ads. UGC is something that I was interested in for a really long time and spent a lot of time thinking about how to do it more organically and authentically to our brand as a charity. And of course, creating that type of content does take more effort and time to produce. But I think if you listen to your audience and take the trend as well as that supporter feedback and mash them together, it can really pay off. All right. And the magnet itself doesn't need to achieve everything. It doesn't have to do it all. It's really important to consider things like thank you pages and welcome series as an extension of that lead gen journey. You can gather more information, you can get different engagement, track more data that way. So don't think that lead gen has to do everything and make it a jumbly mess.
This one's super important. I mean, they're all important. These are our 5 most important things that we decided we wanted to remember. But I think it is so important that we not get so laser focused on the project we're working on that we only think about the KPI that's assigned to that short-term business objective. And so when we're doing lead gen work, we're always focused on how do we get a good CPA? How do we make sure that for every dollar we spend, we're getting as many leads as possible? If we back up a little bit and we think about some of the stuff that World Animal Protection's been doing behind the scenes, they have a global strategy that names different personas. There are peopletarians, there are animalitarians. You can get an animalitarian at a lower cost per acquisition, but a peopletarian might be more likely to convert to a donor over time. And so it's really important that we're not just focusing on, hey, it's lead gen, how do we get the lowest CPA possible? It's also important that we're thinking about that and many of the other things that I mentioned. I think one last thing that is important to name here is all of this work should be iterative. It should be ongoing. You should be learning at all times. And one of the things that the team has learned through the work is by collecting supporter feedback. We were hearing from folks that some of them were choosing to disengage from social content because it was feeling a little too doom and gloom, and there was always something wrong, and there's always something we need to be fixing. And so we made a conscious effort with this project to focus on it being fun first, putting people in the creative, and just making sure that it wasn't just a campaign where we said, how do we report on the lowest CPA possible?
And so that's our last takeaway. Try something fun. Just try it. If it doesn't work, you don't have to do it again. But yeah, doom and gloom, not the only way to get attention.
And I think just on this one, this is, again, I feel like sometimes I just repeat the same things over and over again, but diversify your lead generation portfolio. And if you have lead magnets that are consistently getting good leads at a low CPA and converting them to donor, then it's not so risky to try something new. And it's not so risky to try different tone and different product and different channel because you do have a diversified portfolio. So thanks. Sure.
That was absolutely amazing. I am so glad to have gotten to hear that presentation, and I'm excited to. Is it still live so we can go and take it ourselves?
It is on our website. There are no ads in market currently. We might relaunch it though shortly, later this summer, but it is on our website. So if anyone wants a link, just come find me, send it to you.
I think you'll probably have some takers on that. I want to know what my personality is. Great, we've got some really awesome questions here. Let's start here. How did you engage people for the TikTok ads that you talked about? Were those paid influencers, and how did you track those people down?
That's a great question. Because it was the first time we were really creating that UGC style content, I'm gonna say UGC style because they were members of our community, but folks we knew. One person was one of our team members and then her husband. So we kind of gently coerced some folks into creating that content for us. We have since expanded our UGC program so we have other folks we can reach out to, but for that initial round, it was people we know who care about us and want to see us be successful.
And then just to clarify, because the question was probably framed based on the way that I framed what I was talking about, we didn't actually run TikTok ads or paid TikTok media. all of the paid spend for this campaign was on Meta, but just taking learnings from what other creative looks like on different channels, Reels, etc.
Great, thank you. Let's see, a question from Ria. Did you give each personality version communication moving forward into other campaigns or just the initial response communications?
So I think the Welcome series did have some conditional content. I don't believe we've continued to segment based on personality type once that quiz journey was complete. But we are actually, one of the things that we're working on as a team now is just being really audience first in our communications. We would like to do more customization. But yeah, for this project, it was just that initial Welcome series journey.
And just a shout out to the team over at World Animal Protection and specifically the folks working on email. There is a ton of this type of response where the response would be yes to that question. For this campaign, we were focused more on kind of the lead magnet and the initial autoresponders, but not that it couldn't be, but there's definitely tons of opportunity and other things within their program where they're using that kind of audience first conditionalization in the tool set.
Great, thank you. How about this question? How long is the journey to donate, basically from lead to donor? What did that look like with this campaign?
Great question. I don't know all of the answers. I know that we're working with different teams and vendors, that there's kind of a longer email journey and telemarketing. I know that with this campaign and with a lot of the lead magnets that we're working on together, similar with the Children's Aid Foundation case study, one of the first places that we see a lot of success is by just using that thank you page as a donate ask. And then for our Welcome series, we're really just focused on increasing engagement. A short-term conversion to donor was actually never part of our business objective or goals here. We're trying to keep people as engaged as possible. And with some of the other work that we're doing and testing we're doing this year through Welcome series work, we're going to see if there are other ways in the onboarding journey we can speed that up. But ultimately, I think with this organization, and Leanna, maybe you can speak to this a bit more, it is generally a longer journey from initial lead acquisition to donor conversion.
Yeah, that's true. I also want to add with this campaign specifically, so we do have a bunch of other lead generation assets, as I mentioned, like petitions, email to target, where we would gather phone numbers as well and send those folks into a telemarketing campaign shortly after, like pretty immediately, as others are saying, after the campaign. But with this one, because it was a test and something more fun, we actually only gathered emails for this one. And so the donor journey for this one looks a little bit different. But ultimately, yeah, we're playing the long game here, definitely not the short game.
Great. I think, unfortunately, we're out of time. This sparked a ton of great questions, though. So definitely track down Leanna and Zach for your further questions, or talk to your account success manager if you want to maybe get in touch and ask further questions. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Awesome. Thank you.